This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now, here's your host, Bob McElligott.
It is a big night at Nationwide Arena. The Blue Jackets have their final head-to-head matchup with the Carolina Hurricanes in a game that has a lot on the line. Welcome to CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. The Blue Jackets trail the Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference standings. The Hurricanes are in the number 1 wildcard spot. The Blue Jackets are in the number 2 wildcard spot. Whoever finishes in the second wildcard spot gets the honor of taking on the best team in the league, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in the very first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Nobody wants that honor, believe me. Teams would rather wind up in the Metropolitan Division, take your chances with the Capitals, the Penguins, maybe the Islanders, maybe the Hurricanes, maybe the Blue Jackets, however it sorts out, however it does. And I am very interested to see how it is going to sort out, because I think right now, if you set aside Washington and Pittsburgh, there is a wide open slate the rest of the way. I'm going to talk about that and get a breakdown of the Carolina Hurricanes just a little bit later from John Forslund. He's the play-by-play guy for Carolina. He also does games for NBC Sportsnet. In fact, he did both the Blue Jackets games this year on NBC Sportsnet. But let's talk about the Blue Jackets right now coming into this game. 7-4 win Tuesday night over the Boston Bruins. That seems like an eon ago, doesn't it? The last time the Blue Jackets played, they've had 2 days off, and it just feels like it has been a long, long time. But tonight, they've got to be firing on all cylinders. Carolina knows exactly what is at stake in this game as well. They want to stay ahead of the Blue Jackets. They want to increase their lead over the Blue Jackets. They don't want to be sitting in that final spot looking over their shoulder like the Blue Jackets have been for the last couple of days. They don't want to be that team. And the way that they improve their position is by getting a win tonight. They've already won in this building one time this year, so they feel that they can get the job done. I think they feel like they can get the job done against anybody. And that's the same way the Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella feels. I had a chance to catch up with him this morning after the morning skate.
Torch, having Boone Jenner back in your lineup the other night made such a big difference. And is it fair to say that if you've been here for a long time, maybe not you, but I'll tell you this. I've been here for a long time. I've watched him, and sometimes I forget how valuable he is to this team and what he brings on the ice and off the ice. The game against Boston is a pretty good example of what he does, isn't it?
Yeah. It's sometimes he's not scoring a lot of goals. You don't see him on the sheet that much. The thing I really appreciate about him, I remember last year when he was really struggling as far as putting up numbers. He comes to the rink every day. He's the hardest working guy in practice, one of the better practice players I've ever coached. He just goes about his business every day. Nothing rattles him. There's no maintenance to him. He's the epitome, I think, of what you want a player to be and how you go about your business as a pro. If I'm a young guy, I'm watching every move that guy makes because he is a pro.
Between him and Josh Anderson, how much have they helped by the way that they're playing right now? Just takes these new guys. We've talked about this chemistry thing. And if you had the new guys coming in and looking and waiting for somebody to set the tone and show them the way that they've got to play on this team, how much have those two guys shown that in the last few games?
Yeah. It just rubs off. You know, it rubs off when you watch players that have been here. You watch that guy, Jenner, as he's been here. You find out how you go about your business. And I think our new guys, Quater, who's just a high-character guy, has been in the league for a number of years as a leader. The two guys from Ottawa. We forget about Kincaid. He's handled himself really well here in a very tough situation for him. I think they feel part of it right now. I think that was the most important part of guys contributing, the new guys, and finding a way to win some games because they felt the pressure because the team was struggling since the trades. So, I think our room is good. I'm not going to guarantee it translates to 10 wins in a row here. We got to do our business, but I think we're pretty much settled as far as integrating them into being one of us.
All right, I'm going to confess something to you. Monday on Long Island, I think it was after the first period, I said to Kenny McCudden, I said, why does he change these lines so much? He had some stuff that was working. He changes them all the time. Kenny said, I'll tell him. I said, no, don't worry, I'll tell him. So I am right now. But anyway,
what lines?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember. You switch some things around, but here's my point.
Yes.
Because you've switched them around, you stumble upon the Anderson, Duchesne, Dzingel combination.
Not a bad line, hey, Bobby? You second-guessing me. We kind of come up with a pretty good line there, don't we?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to give you credit right now, so just take it.
I don't want your credit.
Good. But anyway, well, so when you do mix, that's the only way you figure that out, though, right?
Yes, and it's a good question by you, and it's a good thought because it's a real easy. And I get it. I get people. I've got criticized my whole career as far as leave them alone, don't switch them. I am never going to be a coach sticking a thumb in my nose when I don't think things are going good offensively. I'm not. And so you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If I left him alone and we don't find this line here and still struggle offensively, he said, why didn't he change him? So I get it. It's part of the job. People second-guessing you and all that stuff there. But I really don't listen to too much of the noise. I'm not going to listen to your noise either.
Well, I'm just frustrated because I want you to win, and I can't do a thing about it. That's all. So I'll be honest. Yeah. How much are you hoping or looking forward to seeing if the other night was kind of a one-night stand or if you're going to continue to do the same things you did? I'm not talking 7 goals. I'm just talking about playing that way.
Yeah. It's against one of the hottest teams in the league here tonight. Obviously a huge game for both teams. I'm anxious to see how we handle it because I have felt, I think, some of the pressure with our team and some of the inconsistency has been that we're supposed to win, and the pressure kind of mounts when you're not doing it. So I hope they feel a little bit more confidence. I think it's so important that we play with swagger, and I don't think we were doing that for a while. I know we've only won, I think, 2 or 3 games, but the last 5 or 6 games, we have played much better. Haven't gotten results in all of them, but as long as we play with some swagger, not be afraid to make a mistake, we'll find our way.
This team reminds me of your team from 2 years ago. No expectations, having fun, just letting it all hang out there. Now all of a sudden you're in the other spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Roddy Brindamour has done a fantastic job there. It's a team that didn't have a lot of expectations. New coach comes in, a lot of stuff going on around the team. They just go play, and they're fast. We know how fast they are. We knew that even when they didn't have the record they have right now. So it's a team that has. It's something like we want to get to. I think they feel right now that we can beat anybody. And we've had that feeling here before. You know that, Bobby. I think we've kind of just moved around a little bit and not feeling as confident that way. Hopefully we can get that feeling back.
Okay. If you get the win tonight, I'll give you credit. So just want you to know. Good luck, Torts. Thanks.
Thanks, Bobby.
Well, as you can hear, the Blue Jackets head coach was in a decent mood this morning, feeling good about his team, and as he said, hoping to see if they continue to play the way that they have been playing, that they've been playing well. They didn't always get the results, and unfortunately, if this was December, you could be okay with that, but because it's March and because you're in such a tight race, it's not okay. You've got to find a way to get the points, and they all know that, and that's what they're all working toward, but I do hope that what happened on Tuesday was just kind of not just an eye-opener. I hope it opened the floodgates for this team. I don't expect them to score 7. I don't expect them to score 5. I just expect them to win, and so do you. And that's what they need to expect out of themselves. But go, as Torch just said, you can expect to do it, but you've got to do the things it takes to get it done. And that's what they did against Pittsburgh last Saturday. That's what they did against Boston on Tuesday. They didn't do enough of it on Monday against the Islanders, and it cost them. Now, in all fairness, the Islanders, they helped the Blue Jackets out big time last night. That Barry Trotz defense, that team defense that I was bemoaning earlier in the week, I was praising last night when I was watching the end of that game. It was 1-1, Islanders and the Montreal Canadiens, and it looked like it was going to overtime. It absolutely did. Looked like it was going to be a 3-point game. And all of a sudden, the Canadiens make a mistake in the neutral zone. Matt Barzal steals the puck. He comes in on Carey Price, very patiently waits for Anders Lee to get in and make it a 2-on-1, and makes a perfect pass across the slot, and Lee buries it 2-1, the final score. Islanders, look, I don't care that they got those points. It's more important that the Blue Jackets are able to separate themselves. They got a chance to separate themselves in points from the Canadiens tonight because they already hold the tiebreaker, but you want to be ahead of them. You don't want to be relying upon tiebreakers. You want to be ahead, and they have a chance to do that now. But again, as Torch said, you have to do it against one of the hottest teams in the league. This Carolina team has just won games in Nashville and in Colorado before coming here. So they feel they can get the job done. They won here in the second game of the regular season. They feel like they can get the job done. And the Blue Jackets are going to have to counter that tonight. The line that I talked with Torts about, Duchesne, Dzingel, and Anderson. Jody Shelley was talking with Matt Duchesne in the dressing room after the morning skate today. And Duchesne was talking about how easily Josh Anderson fits into what Dzingel and Duchesne have been doing all year. They have themselves a way to play, and they adapt it based upon whether teams are playing man-on-man or if they're kind of playing a zone. So the thing with Oliver Bjorkstrand is he's a very talented player, but Josh Anderson just kind of plays the same way that those guys do, and he understood immediately. Matt said the first time he went on the ice with us, there was nothing to tell him. He was just there. He likes to cycle the puck the way that we like to cycle it. And as a matter of fact, Matt Duchesne had this quote. He said, I think Josh Anderson is the biggest kept secret in the NHL right now. And that is a lot of praise from a guy that's played with a lot of good people with different organizations in his career. But he's right, and we know he's right. We've watched Josh Anderson from the time he broke into the league, and we're watching him now as he gets better and better. We're watching him play the physical game, the speed game, and the skill game all at the same time. He was doing that early in the year. Yesterday after practice, he was asked about the sustainability of that, and he said, it's really hard to do over 82 games. But as we are getting down to the end here, his teammates, this is what he said. He said, my teammates, talk to me about the need for me to play like that. And he is, and what a factor he has been. So if Duchesne and Dzingel can automatically read off of Josh Anderson and get the job done, that's great. Again, it's not just – it's a seeing is believing thing. It's not just you put them out there and expect it. They still have things that they'll have to work through. But as Duchesne was saying this morning, he said we would get a chance to get out on like a half shift. In other words, if Bjorkstrand was on that line and he had just finished power play, maybe they would throw Josh Anderson out there to spell him for a half shift. And Duchesne said from the first time he came on our line, it was there, and we knew it. And we've been talking about getting the opportunity to play together, and it finally happened on Monday. So there it is. They are confident. Now, Matt Duchesne and Ryan Dzingel are automatically confident in that line with Josh Anderson. That is great. Because here's what's going to happen. We saw it the other day. And going down the stretch, and even if you get into the playoffs, teams are going to key on Artemi Panarin and Cam Atkinson. Why? Well, because Atkinson has the most goals, Panarin has the most points. They will want to take that line out of the game. And now you could have, and again, I'm not 100% sold. I like what they're saying. I like what they did. I want to see more of it. But now you possibly have a bona fide number 2 line that is good enough to be a number 1 line. And that is where you create problems for people in the playoffs. That is what you have to have. Washington's got it. Pittsburgh has it. The Blue Jackets, if this all works out, they should have it. They absolutely should have it. So it'll be interesting to watch. Very, very interesting. But tonight, it's going to be about patience. It's going to be about using your speed. It is going to be about crashing the net. I'll talk about the Carolina Hurricanes in more detail with John Forslund, their play-by-play voice, right after I tell you about Telhio Credit Union. And about Telhio taking care of their members, putting people over profits since 1934. A lot of different services that they have. Checking accounts, several of them. They've got loans. They've got CDs for you to invest, all kind of stuff. In fact, you don't even have to be overwhelmed. You can take a look at it at your own pace, in your own leisure time. All you have to do is go online to telhio.org. You have a question that comes up, pops into your mind while you're looking at the website, there is a live chat button. Bam, click on it, and you'll get help immediately. Or if you're driving around town, you can stop by one of the local Telhio Credit Union offices. Telhio Credit Union is available to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. Let's talk about the Carolina Hurricanes right now and about a team that I've told you all year I'm waiting for them to disappear, and they just won't do it. They won't. They never go away. And they are there now, coming down the stretch. They're battling with everybody else, and they're feeling confident about themselves. And a guy that is around this team all the time is John Forslund. He does the play-by-play on both radio and television for the Hurricanes. And at the morning skate today, I had a chance to catch up with him.
John, this Carolina Hurricanes team, you're with them all the time. All season I've been waiting for them to fade and fall out of the playoff picture, and here we are on March 15th with a huge head-to-head at Nationwide Arena. What has kept this team in the hunt? I know they've got talent, but beyond that, what has made them so good?
Number one, the coach. I think Rod Brindamour has done a fantastic job getting them to work, getting them to buy into a culture of working. It sounds very simple. It sounds like, what do you mean? Most teams want to do that, right? But to get them to buy into that effort level every game. There might have been one game all season he can point to say, gee, they were out to lunch. So that's number one. Number two, their internal chemistry has been phenomenal. Their abilities to want to play for each other. I haven't been around a team that's had this much fun doing what they're doing since the 06 team that won the whole thing. You kind of get around these teams and you get a handle on where they're coming from on a day-to-day basis. And when they come off long road trips, they don't want to leave each other. You know, it looks like that's the type of chemistry that they have. So those two things have kept it together. And to your point, Bob, I think when it was Christmas, it looked like this wouldn't even be this was a long reach. This was a long way away from being real. But they've been able to put together some solid hockey and great goaltending for almost 3 months now to get in a position to at least have a chance. But it's due in large part to the coaching and their overall chemistry with each other.
You know, it's funny when you talk about the coaching. Rod Brindamour, of course, not only played for the Hurricanes, but when Bill Peters was the head coach, he was an assistant. And sometimes the assistant going to the head coach doesn't work. But obviously this is a guy that the players respected and they liked, and they just continue to play for him.
Well, there's a lot of things in play with Rod. Number one, when you're a great player, as he was, oftentimes we would look at it and say, oh, he has an assistant coaching job because he's Rod Brindamour. He wants to work in the game. They've given him a job. And then you would think, well, how hard does he actually have to work at it, or is he? And unless you're around the team, as I have been, you don't see the amount of work he did for 7 years as an assistant. First with Kirk Muller and then with Bill Peters. A great assistant, communicator with the players, but putting in the due diligence, putting in the video work, putting in the long hours to really get into the coaching fraternity, not just a figurehead position. And the other thing about Rod is his intelligence. You look at him and you remember the type of player he was, the off-ice warrior, the workout fiend, the real stubborn, serious player all the time, great defensive shutdown center. But he is very intelligent, and he knows how to get to just about everybody differently. And he relates to today's players because I think he sees that. And in today's game, the younger players look at the world differently than certainly people in my generation do. And if you're a coach, you have to relate to them. So the days of just do something because I tell you to do it, because I'm your coach, are long gone. You have to explain. You have to give them information. You have to coddle some of them. And he's able to work that with virtually every guy differently, which has been pretty remarkable to watch.
Talking with John Forslund, play-by-play voice for the Carolina Hurricanes. Justin Williams, you know, the saying is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But it seems like the old dog is the one teaching the tricks to the young guys on this team. You know, the post-game celebrations you guys have at home. He's been a driving force behind all of that and has kind of changed the culture a little bit. Does that surprise you that he's a guy that's backed all these things?
Not at all, because we saw it when he was younger, and we saw what he brought to the table then, but we just thought, geez, he's Willie. He's a young guy, and he's happy-go-lucky, and he plays big in big games. Then he went on to L.A., and he created this Mr. Game 7 persona. And, you know, you earn that, right? And so this time around, I think last year, in his first year back with the Hurricanes, he was really taken back by the fact that he wasn't made captain. That bothered him. He's even talked about it this year. And now with Rod taking over, and Rod had a big part in him coming back to the Hurricanes just to get him there in the first place. You know, he's been able to fully embrace the role, but lighten up the guys at the right time. He's a very serious guy, too. He has said a lot of things that were very outspoken in the first half of the year about how they were playing. Maybe a lot of the guys didn't like to hear that, but his actions have certainly spoken louder than his words in the second half of the season. Been remarkable the way he's been able to do it. Yes, he is the mastermind behind the storm surge and the post-game celebrations and all these things. I mean, that's how he looks at life. I always tell people this. Back in 2006, before Game 7, at that year, because we came out of a canceled season, they loosened up a lot of the media rules. One rule the Hurricanes had was at 5 o'clock they opened up the dressing room for about 20 minutes, and you could go in as a media person every game, and they carried it through the playoffs. So Game 7, we were able to get down there and get in the room, and we talked with the coaches before the deciding game of the final, and here he was running around with a soccer ball with a big smile on his face, and I said to him, Willie, you seem pretty loose. And he looked at me, he goes, Johnny, what's the worst that can happen? We lose. And they went out and they won Game 7, and I think that's how he looks at things, and that's why he delivers in big moments and he's got 3 Stanley Cups and a Conn Smythe and all that. Don't look past his light approach, because there's a burning competitive athlete in there who's very serious too, and I think because he can walk both sides, the players respect that.
Now, I would ask you who's playing goal tonight for you, but I know it doesn't matter, because what a balance. You hardly ever see that much balance between goalies that have good numbers and they kind of share the net. Peter Mrazek, Curtis McElhaney. We know Curtis. We had him here for a couple of years, and he's such a great guy. And it's good to see him succeed, although I'll be honest with you, I don't like him succeeding when the Blue Jackets are the ones shooting at him. But what's made that combination work?
Both guys fighting for their lives. One guy, contractually, just there wasn't room in Toronto. They wanted to save a little money, get to a new guy as their 2, kind of, put him on waivers. And, if it wasn't for an injury to Scott Darling in the last preseason game, he wouldn't be a Carolina Hurricane. And they had a choice between either McElhaney or Calvin Pickard, and they decided to take McElhaney, and it was a great move. And he hasn't looked back from his first win here, which was the second game of the regular season. Mrazek's case, he took a 1-year deal, $1.5 million, to prove that he could be a 1. And he still, hasn't earned a new contract somewhere, whether it be with the Hurricanes or whatever. He has really, in the second half, been unbelievable. And so if you put the 2 guys together, you'd have a Vezina Trophy if there was one guy. But because it's 2, it's not going to happen. But they've been that good. Their goals against is hovering around 2. The save percentage, 93-94. They've got, between the 2 of them, 6 shutouts. It's remarkable. I've never seen anything like this. And then when it gets to their personalities, they actually are pulling for each other, which sounds kind of trite, but it's true. And, they both want the net, obviously, but they both understand where they've been. In McElhaney's case, I don't have to tell you, he's a pro's pro. And so he's been an outstanding number 2 wherever he's been. He knows the game. Nothing rattles him. Mrazek's case, he's more spectacular. He's more athletic. He's more hot and cold. But he's been really, really hot. And when he is like that, he can carry teams. He did it in the American League. He did it with Detroit for a time. And that's what we're seeing right now.
All right, my last thing for you. Besides doing Carolina, you do games for NBC Sportsnet, so you're around. You see a lot of different teams. How do you see this thing shaking out in the East?
I think the teams that are there now are going to be there. Montreal, for me, just doesn't seem like they're real enough. Great goaltender, obviously, but 6-9 in their last 15. They lost a big game last night with the Islanders. I think they needed that one. So I think it's just a matter of who finishes where, unless the Canadians put a winning streak together and one of these teams, whether it be the Blue Jackets or the Canes, go into a pitfall. I don't see it. I really like this Columbus team. I always have, and I really like the moves they made, and I was shaking my head as much as anybody, wondering why this has taken a while to maybe get going, and maybe this is just starting to gel now for this team. But I think they're a really good group. The Hurricanes, again, have been able to forge out an identity, and if you rattle off wins like they have since the first of the year, you probably deserve a playoff spot. Whoever finishes where, it'll be interesting because it looks like Washington's found it. They'll probably win the division. The Islanders might slip a little bit. Pittsburgh's found it, I think. When they get Letang back, they'll be okay. And then Tampa's at another level. And then Boston and Toronto just kill each other. So good for the Metro, right? Because I thought this was a year 4 might come out of the Atlantic, and we might see a little bit of a change that way. But it doesn't appear to be that. And again, I would think Montreal's got to really go on a run now, which they haven't proven they can since the early stages of the season.
That is John Forslund, who does play-by-play for the Hurricanes and also does it on NBC Sportsnet. Blue Jackets and the Hurricanes tonight at 7 o'clock. You've got to watch out for Sebastian Aho. He leads the team in points. He leads the team in goals. John and I just talked about Justin Williams. Also, the defense of the Carolina Hurricanes as a whole, whether it's Dougie Hamilton, Justin Falk, Jacob Slavin, Brett Pesce, those four guys right there are going to be tough for the Blue Jackets to deal with tonight. They have got their work cut out for them in facing them. It will be Peter Mrazek that is going to start in net. He has 6 consecutive wins. He's feeling good about himself. I would like to think of it as 6 consecutive wins means it's about time to lose, but that won't be up to me. That will be up to the Blue Jackets and what they are able to do tonight. Pre-game coverage starts at 6:45 on the Blue Jackets radio network. You can hear that on the flagship station, 97.1 The Fan in Columbus, and on our network stations throughout Ohio and in parts of West Virginia. You can also get the game anywhere via the app on your phone, the Blue Jackets app, or the TuneIn app. You can get it on your computer or laptop by going to bluejackets.com. And if you're listening to SiriusXM radio tonight, we are going to be on the main NHL radio channel, Channel 91 on SiriusXM radio this evening. So this is going to be a good one. One way or the other, it's going to be a good one. The Blue Jackets have lost 2 times to the Hurricanes. They lost to them once in Raleigh, once at home. They have beaten them once in Raleigh. They have a chance to split the season series tonight. They, for the most part, must split the season series tonight if they're serious about getting into the postseason. They can go a long way toward that by getting a win tonight because they've got to get on a plane after this game and go right to Boston and face a Bruins team that's going to be ready for revenge tomorrow night. That is then. This is now. Blue Jackets and Hurricanes, 7 o'clock at Nationwide Arena. Until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.